connecting existing and aspiring women leaders in global education. The word global wasn't always in our purpose, but as you will be able to see, we really have gone global with the networks in WomenEd, from Canada through the United States, all the way through the UK and Europe, down to the Middle East, down to Malaysia, and over to Australia. It's absolutely phenomenal that we now have 35 global networks across the world. And I always ask myself regularly, why is that? Why is a group that started on Twitter wanting to try and help women leaders on Twitter, why have we had exponential growth? We have only been in existence 6 years, and everybody, including the people who've organised this super event, we're all volunteers doing what we do on top of our day job. So why is it that so many women, I think we have about 160 network leaders across the world now, why is it that so many women want to support and help other women? And why is it that so many women flock to join the networks? So I'd like to take a little bit of time to think about that and explore that. And I'd love if you put in the chat, you know, what are your thoughts? Why are so many women across the globe uniting and coalescing around the thought of supporting women leaders in education? I want to just start trying to explore some of those ideas and issues with you. As we are now global, we look very carefully at the global data on women leaders in public education. And the underrepresentation of women in leadership posts is stark. And I'll just leave you a moment there to be having a look at those statistics. I'm assuming you'll know the statistics for the USA, but even I, after 6 years of looking at all of this data, I'm still shocked that only 24% of superintendents are women. And I'm unbelievably shocked that only 11% of head teachers in Ethiopia are women. And I know that will be to do with cultural, religious, historical, social issues. And I'm delighted to say that WomenEd is now starting work with one of the regions in Ethiopia to see what we can do to support those women who are head teachers there. But the data is stark, and this is why WomenEd is in existence. Wherever we are in the world, the same issues are emerging around the underrepresentation of women in public education. And that's our mission. We want to empower more women in education to have a choice to progress into leadership, so that if they wish to, and it's an ambition that you have here, in a school, in a college, in a university, whichever organisation in education, if women want to progress on their leadership journey, we want to help remove the barriers to that choice. And we often use these two images to describe the nature of that choice. The man on the left going up the traditional leadership ladder, that's the usual trajectory. That's the stereotypical version of leadership. But for women, for many women, they have a different leadership journey. They may start on one or two of those rungs on the ladder, but then they may need to come off, or they may need to move sideways, or they may shoot up but then face a barrier that stops them progressing further. They may come off their climbing wall completely and never return, or they may come back and have a completely different set of steps to their leadership journey. And we want to emphasize that we think that's fine. In whatever route you take, in whatever way you progress on your journey as a leader, if that's your choice, then that's fine, and it's not an issue how long it takes you. But there are some issues to explore in some of the reasons why women find they have to take more steps. And I always look at that leadership image of a man climbing the trajectory. And actually, that was my leadership journey. I became a head teacher, a principal in a secondary school. And I would say my journey to that was like that ladder. And I often wonder if that's because I didn't have children. So that's one big barrier potentially there for us. But that's our global mission now. And we're delighted to share that with you this evening. It would be great if you popped in the chat what you already know about WomenEd. And I'm just going to highlight some key points for you. Our work in WomenEd has now 4 campaigns. We've coalesced all of our work around these 4 issues. The first 2 are absolutely about increasing representation of women, with a particular focus on the underrepresented groups. Ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, age, motherhood. All of the underrepresented women in our education workforces. And we want to try and remove some of the barriers, as I said, and we think 2 of the barriers are flexible working practices and whether they're supporting women to be retained in our education organisations. So we advocate for that. And we advocate to reduce the gender pay gap in education. I don't know why any of you joined an educational organisation and have had a career in education, but I joined education and trained as an educator because I thought I was joining a moral, ethical, equitable profession. And the more work we've done on WomenEd, the more personally I've come to feel that there is a great deal about what happens in education and the treatment of women leaders and women educators in education that makes it feel now as if it's not the equitable profession that I chose. I think we are all about equity for our students, and it's time now to be about equity for the vast proportion of women who are leading in education. And so the topic of my presentation this afternoon is calling for people involved in WomenEd to be disruptors and to be innovators and to be change makers. We've spent 6 years in WomenEd exploring all the reasons why those 4 barriers in those campaigns are holding women back. And now that we've got a better understanding of it, we're now calling for change, significant, specific change. We want positive disruption to those barriers that hold women back, and particularly the lack of working practices that support the choices that many women make. And then when we've started that disruptive process, we want to have innovative, helpful, beneficial solutions to those barriers so that underrepresented women are proportionally represented in leadership roles and all women are able to take their rightful place in education. And we definitely want to press that disrupt button for all of these barriers. And we want to change the status quo. And that includes the myriad gender pay gaps that we see around the world, for females in education. So I hope you're ready to think about disrupting everything that holds us back this evening. And I'd love to see in the chat, what do you think holds women back from leadership positions? This is what I think holds women back, and things that we can positively disrupt to make a difference and to be innovative in changing practices. My expertise is from England, and yet as we connect with more and more women across the globe, we realise much is the same. So while the details may not be the same for you as they are for me, the key issues there. And in terms of recruitment, particularly want to focus on those 4 points. The gendered language within which advertisements and person specs are written, the nature of any application form, how interviews run, and the nature of the diversity in an organisation that might be recruiting you. So let's have a think of some of the things that I think need disrupting. Number 1, that gendered language. I've done quite a lot of work on adverts from English schools, and when I read them, I can virtually tell whether subconsciously or consciously they're written to attract a man or a woman. And what I now do is I put some of those adverts in a gender decoder. There's lots of them available on Google, whatever. And I put the words of the advert in, and it tells me the balance of masculinized and feminized words. Now, of course, words aren't feminine or masculine, unless you're in some of the European languages, of course, but they're not in English. And yet, subliminally, stereotypically, we react to words. I'm an ex-English teacher, and I believe in the power of language. So what you can do is put an advert for a job that you're interested in into that decoder, and you can get a sense of their subliminal choices. And if you are a school leader or a university leader or an education leader of any description, and you are going to advertise jobs, you can disrupt and be innovative by checking out your own words and try and get the balance that we would all want. I don't know if any of you have blind recruitment or you experiment it, but we absolutely need to build much more on blind recruitment procedures. In England, it doesn't happen. I'd be really interested to know if it happens in the States a lot. And if it doesn't yet, please, everybody, do that. Try that. It makes a difference. In one piece of research I was doing, and Lisa, who's also on the chat here, in the article we did for the Chartered College of Teaching, there was one piece of research that said white names were called back 50% more times than any other. That's why we need blind recruitment. Salary questions. I've learnt from Aspen that you're not supposed to ask salary questions at all in the US. They do in England. They have a big box that says, what's your current salary? And for the majority of women everywhere, it's going to be less than any man applying. So if the woman's offered the job, they're going to get away with paying her a lower increase than the man. And of course, that pervades your entire career then and affects your pension. So we have to change any of the procedures around that. And the same with working patterns. If somebody's offering something full-time, how can we disrupt that in the conversations about recruitment? And in your own research for applications that you're looking at, can you see if the organisation sees diversity as an advantage? Do they welcome it? Is there a blend of diverse backgrounds, experiences, ages in their leadership team, or in the images that they share to entice you and attract you to apply? We've got to do our own research. And I was delighted to read this. I'll chatter on while you're having a read. So the good news in the US is that the gender pay gap in education is very small. Look, 91 cents to the dollar, 94 cents to the dollar. In England, the gender pay gap is nearly 20%. So we would be having 80 cents on the dollar. However, look at the number of states who don't have a teacher salary schedule, and those that have legislated a standard, but it's only a minimum. So local districts can expand the salary schedule. So while I got excited that, whoa, the US was doing something fantastic, actually the schedules are maybe a little bit more flexible than may have been thought. And I think I heard Melissa earlier say she was from Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, there's a piece of research there that's showing that the salary disparities are large for principals and superintendents. And the gaps grow when they control for the different factors. And look at this, colleagues. In Pennsylvania, there's the gender pay gap at all levels. Not for all educators, because of course, women make up the majority. But look at the whopping yellow ones there, the gap with controls. And that means they've taken out experience, maybe the university you went to, how long you've been working. And those yellow bars are the actual gender pay gap. That's quite big, isn't it, per annum? Each year, 10 years in that role. That's a lot of money. I could go over to America lots of times with that. That would be wonderful. It shouldn't be happening. And then, of course, the huge gap of the motherhood penalty. Lots of research on this. And what's even more bizarre is that the equivalent for a man is the fatherhood bonus. Men's salary go up if they're a father. Women's goes down if they're a mother. That's irrespective of the nature of the working pattern that they have. So, are we ready to question working patterns and disrupt the status quo with those? What else are we ready to do? Are we ready to think about shared leadership? We're doing a lot of work on that in England. Co-headships, job shares. What else can we disrupt, either for ourselves or for other people? If you're offering a range of flexible practices, advertise your offer when you're seeking to recruit. Apparently, that makes a phenomenal difference to the number of people that therefore will apply. And let's celebrate the benefits of flexible working. There are many of them, and maybe we need to make it a little bit more clear in that way. And here's a big one, isn't it? How do we learn to share the domestic load as women and as men? Because that's one of the key reasons holding us back from leadership. If you want to lead, we've got to be open to those questions with our partners, male partners, female partners. It has got to be equitable. It's got to be balanced. And therefore, on all of those points, I would like to ask you in an innovative way to really press that disrupt button, to learn to be clear on what you want and what you are worth, and to negotiate any and all of these aspects. What does that feel like to negotiate? Put that in the chat. In one of the pieces of research we shared in 10% Braver, Men likened negotiation to a wrestling match, a bit of fun, bit of game. Slap you down, get you back up again. Women describe negotiation as going to the dentist. Painful, it's something that many people don't look forward to. And a lot of women are afraid that if they negotiate what they do, they won't be liked anymore, because we have that social desire built into us by the whole media and the whole stereotypical patriarchy around us. So when would you negotiate? When can you practice? What can you do with that? What is it you might want? If you wanted more salary, you might want more professional development, you might want different working patterns, you might want some admin support, you might want to come in one morning at a later time to drop off a child. Be very clear on what you want, and it's time for us to know that what we want needs to count. That's the disruption. And everyone who negotiates knows it's supposed to be a win-win. So if you know what you want and what you can be, what you're prepared to negotiate about, so does the other party. The aim of a negotiation is not to destroy the other person, it's that both of you get something that you want. And a key thing for WomenEd is that in all of these ways, in disruption, in innovation, we want to bring about change for women. And we're a values-driven organisation, and these are our values, and this is important to us. I'm so pleased tonight to be connecting with you all, and to have more women joining this fabulous community of WomenEd. We challenge people, we're challenging you this evening to think about ways you can disrupt and innovate. All of it is in the nature of change. And we're an inclusive organisation. We need these men who have those higher salaries, who are leaders and principals and superintendents, to bring their female colleagues with them. We need to work with men, open their eyes to the inequity, and then we can help them to help us ourselves. And I was grateful to Aspen for referencing our books, our 2 books, which we're very proud of. And we are quietly thinking about a 3rd book. We might be bonkers, but we're going to go for it, aren't we, Lisa? Nodding away there in the background. If you haven't read either of these books, we would suggest that they're really helpful for you and for other school leaders. Brilliant presents for others. And we have all the usual ways of connecting with us. WomenEdUS have just started a newsletter. We're on most of the social media channels, and on the website also there's a unique page for WomenEdUS, so you can really connect that way also. And as Being 10% Braver was published in December, this is our year in WomenEd of being 10% braver. And so my question to you, my provocation, and I hope you'll take this through the 2 days of the Unconference. How will you be 10% braver? And in what way are you going to positively disrupt the status quo so that you yourself, other women, and the future women leaders to come are able to get through years more easily and more comfortably than we have done so far? Thank you very much.